All right, well, Mark, you were able to avoid following Paul, so now I guess I'm going to tee things up for you. I think this is a position a lot of people are picking us to take in the first round, and I don't know if it's just because of the value at the position in the first. Maybe you can shed some light on why we would go corner at 16 overall.
Well, I'm gonna start off by doing the podcast version of The Dog Ate My Homework. My real notes are on my work computer, and it got corrupted, so I spent most of this afternoon scrambling to make up paper notes and try to remember everything that I was talking about. But I was gonna, and we could do this for every position group, but with the OL, I kept approaching this in that we're drafting. You'd like to think you're drafting a starter at certainly at 16. But then you're trying to figure, so what are we drafting for as a coach? The team wants to draft a guy they figure can play in their current system and step in and contribute right away and fit exactly what you're trying to do. As a fan of a team that's about to be sold and likely will have all new coaches and schemes and everything else in a year, I'm thinking, well, what do I want to see us do with a draft pick? And I kept coming back to, fortunately, what this team keeps talking about they want guys who are multiple. They want guys who can move, who are versatile and can fill a lot of roles. So maybe that's the perfect. Say again?
Position flex.
Well, yeah, and that's legit when you're in a system or not. I mean, Joe Gibbs used to love the guys on the OL who could slide up and down the line. That makes all the sense in the world. So I agree with Paul. It doesn't look, from all the mocking that I've done, that OL, it would have to be somebody who fell and they were surprised to see still there. I still think that's our number one overall need. But value at 16, I probably keep coming back to cornerback, and I suspect that's probably what they'll do if one of three guys is there. One of which, well, I'll just go with it. The potential unicorn and the consensus top-rated cornerback is Devin Witherspoon out of Illinois. The guy is, he's a 4.39 40. He's athletic as hell. And I fell in love with one, not really a stat that I'm used to seeing. This is fairly new in the way these draft profiles are done, but the QB rating when targeted for cornerbacks. This is a guy who played 4 years at Illinois. In 2019 as a freshman, played in 12 games, and had a solid QB rating when targeted of 76.6. As a sophomore in 2020, played in 7 games and ballooned up to 122.6. Since then, in his last 2 years, he dropped down to the QB rating against of an 86.9. And this last year, and the reason why he's, I guess, the consensus cornerback, number one cornerback, is in 12 games, he played 738 snaps. So, I mean, he was out on the field, 14 pass breakups, 3 picks, and lowered he had an outstanding QB rating when targeted of 24.6, which was number 1 in the nation on PFF. And it's the kind of thing that obviously gets your attention. He won, was just about every honor you can get. He was a finalist for the Thorpe Award. There are 13 or 14 of these lists that I'm not going to read them. Point being, the guy had a great year. He's got the full package. He can move. He's got ball skills. He looks like he's pretty fluid. The one knock, and I guess this is the reason why he's not projected to go, even as high as in the top 5, as corners seem to be every year, is he's about 180 and 6 feet. He's not considered particularly large, and scouts seem to describe his frame as slight. So I'm a little less concerned to that with a long-term professional. I mean, 1 year in a professional training room at a professional meal table, he's going to put on 10, 15 pounds of muscle. I'm not so worried about that anymore. If that guy's there at 16, you almost have to take him. Seems to me, whether you're Ron Rivera or you're some dude on the internet talking about it like me, it just makes a lot of sense to grab the consensus top rated corner. They're hard to come by. And if he doesn't have to be Deion Sanders, but if you get a guy who can come in and contribute as a freshman, as a rookie, and potentially give you a solid starter material for a few years to come, you almost have to go there. I don't think he's going to drop to 16. I see the Raiders are likely to. I've seen him mocked at 7 with the Raiders a few times. I suspect if he's still hanging around in the low teens, someone's going to jump up to grab him. I hope that's not us. But if he's at 16, that would be my guy. The second guy and the most mocked guy is Joey Porter of Penn State. This is a 4.46 guy who has played in, this is the stat I wanted to mention. Let's see, the man played in 35 games, started as a freshman, actually only played in 4 games as a freshman. Sorry, you may notice I don't have my notes in very good order here. His QB rating when he was first, as a freshman, when he was first targeted, was 156.3, which I don't think you can get any higher. So basically, if you threw at him, it was a completed pass. Over the last 3 years, he dropped that to 127, down to 84, down to 63. And in his senior year, he jumped up to an elite level. He played in 10 games, 440 snaps, got 24 tackles, 4 assists. Did not have any picks, but he broke up 9 passes. The downside on this guy is that a lot of scouts don't seem to think he's got the quick hips and the ability to swivel in traffic. He's better with the action in front of him. He may be a little overly aggressive at times. I kind of like an aggressive cornerback. I think you almost have to be these days. Receivers are bigger and they're aggressive and they get in your face. I don't think you can be a shrinking violet at corner anymore. In the NFC East, you're going to have a guy who's physical. So I would really think if Joey Porter is there, and I think there's a very good chance he will be, I suspect that might be our guy. He is projected mid-first round. He'd be a solid enough pick. I was trying to get you his 40 again. He's a 4.46 40, so not elite speed.
How big is he, Mark? How big is he?
This man is 6'2" and about 195 now. Thank you. I was going to mention one thing I noticed looking at corners this year. This is a big cornerback crop. There are a lot of big, talented, aggressive run-stopping corners that are going to be available in the first round and the second round, and maybe even a little deeper. If we don't take one in the first round, I can almost guarantee we'll be taking one in the second round. And I've got a couple of guys I'm going to mention about that in a minute. But I have a funny feeling that you might be looking at our number 1 overall pick right here in Joey Porter, and you could do a lot worse. I think this is a guy who won't start right away, but I think by the end of a rookie season, could be seeing plenty of time in nickel action. And I think he's got a high upside. He seems to be a football player. That's the note that I made for myself. He looks like a football player to me.
Well, he grew up in football locker rooms, didn't he?
He did. His dad was Joey Porter, a linebacker who bounced around the NFL for several years. So he's a legacy, right? He's not going to be afraid of the environment, and he's not going to be unable to handle himself in an NFL locker room or on a field. The other guy who gets mentioned as a first rounder, who's a potential, is Christian Gonzalez out of Oregon. This is another fairly large cornerback. He's 6'1", just about 200 now, which is interesting to me because cornerbacks, most years, it seems to me when I'm looking at cornerbacks, you're getting guys who are, 5'11" and 180. A lot of the guys I'm looking at this year that are coming out are 6 foot plus and already pushing 200 pounds before hitting an NFL training table. And I automatically add 10 pounds to these guys. So this is another good-sized player. He's a 4.38 40. He's a 41.5 vertical.
Hmm.
He played in. I keep losing it, you guys. I apologize. Well, let's just skip over that then. So the downside is lack of experience. He's only played 2 years, freshman and sophomore years. He saw action in 6 games as a freshman, and even then was that solid rating against of 85.3. As a sophomore, he played in 12 games. He had just 4 pass breakups and a QB rating of 90. I'm curious why he's getting rated as a first round type player. I honestly don't quite see it. He's got speed, and I mean, the guy can run, and he's got good size. But I needed to mention him because there's a good chance he'll be I mean, if he drops to the second round, I suspect that would be a pretty good value pick. But those are the 3 guys that I see consistently associated with Washington. So this might be another guy. I don't think his upside, actually, we have no idea what it is. He's barely played, and I'm always concerned, like John is, with a lack of experience. So for second round picks, if for some reason we don't go corner, there are 2 guys in the second that I wanted to mention. One, I did not get a YouTube for, Derek, so don't worry about it. That's Deontay Banks out of Maryland.
Maryland, yeah. I was wondering if he was going to get a nod.
He let me see. Let me tell you about Deontay Banks. Deontay Banks is another 6-footer. He is 197. He played all 4 years at Maryland, played in 11 games as a freshman. Is another guy who consistently he got a lot better in his last 3 years, consistently in the high 60s and low 70s in the pass rating against. Not a big interception guy, but what he is and what he jumps out when, I mean, at the YouTubes I did look at him, he's a very aggressive, almost cocky player who he scares me a little bit. I think he's got all the talent in the world. I watched Maryland play, I think 3 times this year, and he didn't really jump out at the screen at me as a corner. He kind of jumped out more at me as a downhill guy, charging into the backfield and making tackles on the edge. The one that I am intrigued by as a second rounder, my second day pick, is DJ Turner out of Michigan. So I don't know if you guys were heavy into and I do have a YouTube on DJ. The reason I'm mentioning him is I think he's a solid second round pick. He's a smaller guy. By this year's standards, he's 5'11", 180 now. But he's a 4.26 40. And he ran the second best cone drill since they've been timing that, according to what I was reading. And just watching him play, so I think he projects more as a slot corner than an edge corner, if nothing else, based on his size. But when you watch him on the field, he just is a natural flow to the ball guy with great quick reactions. Does not seem to shy away from contact with larger receivers, keeps the play in front of him. I watched 2 or 3 different vids of the guy, and I'm imagining him also as a potential punt returner. I don't know. I didn't see that written a lot about him, but with the guy with that kind of quicks, and I don't think he's a whole lot smaller than Darrell Green was. I don't rule out 5'11" guys as being starters. I really kind of am intrigued by this guy, and that would be an exciting pick to me. I think that's the kind of guy that would find himself on the field a lot as a rookie in different packages based on his speed and in nickel situations. And if he develops as a slot and maybe even as an edge corner in a year or 2, you get that guy in the second or even third round. I don't think he'll last to the third round. I think he's gone in the second. That would be a really solid second round pick. Keep your eyes on DJ Turner. Speed covers a lot of ills, and a creative defensive coordinator can find a way to get him in situations where he can make plays. So that would be an exciting pickup for me. I only have one guy for third days. I was going to try to do more on him, but I really kind of like Riley Moss out of Iowa, who is a 6'1", almost 200 pounds. Sound familiar? Cornerback who played in 49 games in his 5 years at Iowa. He played over 2,500 snaps. This is a guy who has been on the field a lot, has a lot of experience in big time college football. He's, to me, seems like just such a classic rotational guy. I suspect you could put him at safety. You could put him at corner. He's not going to blow you away with his athleticism, but he strikes me as a guy who knows where he's supposed to be on the field. And it may be an accident, but the first time I discovered him was following a link from a Pittsburgh Steeler fan of mine who was talking about a guy that Steelers fans are targeting as a late round steal. And it may just be because Iowa's uniform looks like the Steelers, and because they're not all the brightest fans. Most of my
Well, if that's the case, we would draft everybody out of Minnesota.
There you go. Yeah.
He's picked more passes off in this highlight reel than our defensive backfield has in a couple of years. I say that much.
I like guys who, I can't remember the linebacker that I had picked out last year before we discovered that Washington football teams don't actually draft linebackers, but he's just a football player, and that used to be valued more than it is now. I think we go on measurables a lot. I still go because maybe I'm old school, but when I see a football player on the field, they just kind of jump out at me. They're in the right place. They're making plays. This guy to me is the epitome of that. He's also a pretty good sized dude. He runs a 4.45 40. He's not unathletic, and he's got good size. And with all that experience, I think that would be another solid pickup. So I plan to put on the thread a link to the diamonds in the rough thing. I mean, we could go on all night about all the positions. There's a lot of talented corners. We are going to come away with a talented corner, maybe two, whether it's first round, second round. Your guess is as good as mine. So that's where I am on corners. Don't ask me any questions because I don't have my notes.
Good job.
I like it. So I guess to the point is, so Mark,
Yeah.
you would endorse us taking a corner at 16, because there has been, myself included, has pushed back a lot. Like, why would we do that? You've got St. Juice, Fuller's under contract, making decent money. Obviously we moved on from McCain, but you got Curl, you got Forrest as your DBs. Is 16 worth a cornerback?
My answer to that would be, I guess, two things. One, do we have Benjamin St. Just?
Yeah.
I'll believe it when I see it. And two, we have at safety. I would not endorse drafting a safety. I would endorse drafting a legit corner who can play some man and can be solid in zone as well. Two guys. I would endorse it if it's one of two guys. I would endorse it fairly strongly if it was Witherspoon. I would sign off and be okay with it if it was Porter. Beyond that, no.
On St. Just, you're referring to the concussion history.
The concussion history and and overall inability to stay on the field. He's been tweaked and beat up, and I love what I see from the guy, but it's not a guy that I'm penciling in and hoping to get 17 games out of.
Fair. All right, Bob, you're muted, so you might want to unmute before you make a.
Yeah, sorry. I was busy coughing a minute ago while Mark was trying to talk, so I thought I'd be polite and then forgot.
Took your breath
polite.
away, did he? He's
Because
got
I'm
the
never
ability to
polite.
do that.
Costume change.
No, I swallowed my beer wrong. That always sucks. But
I didn't even know that was possible.
It doesn't happen very often, John. It really doesn't. I understand the concept that that value in the first round is at cornerback at the moment, but man, I'll tell you what, it really chaps me to sink another first round draft pick into a defense that already has 5 that we put into it right? I mean, it just, especially when you look at how bare the cupboard is on the offensive side of the ball on the line when it comes to first round draft talent. It would just hurt. I mean, I get it, Mark. I get it, and thank you. I think that was great. I'm intrigued by a couple of those guys, especially the Darryl Green size guy. I love the romantic in me would love to have another guy that size on the team that can just outrun the world. But anyway,
So I guess, Bob, the quick answer to that then is I agree with you that if we were drafting in the top 10, I would say an OL would be a complete no-brainer. The question is, do you get first round value at 16 on the offensive line this year?
Yeah.
And the all too often argument, well, just trade back if your guy's not there. Well, it takes 2 to tango. So, you don't want to overdraft O-line. You don't want to overdraft corner. You don't want to overdraft it anywhere. And if you can't trade back, you've got to get the best player. We cannot continue to draft players that don't work out. And the only way that you can do that is to take the best damn player on the board.
Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. I think the depth at cornerback talent and whether or not we see that as a need may very well dictate whether we can or whether we will trade out a 16. If Porter is there and somebody's willing to give up the world to get their hands on him, I'd rather have the world than Porter.
And to be fair, we were signing Rashad Wild Goose off the street last year to cover people, and he was doing it effectively, which is kind of a crazy thing to think about.